Focus on my face. Focus on my face. Not her. Not her face. Focus on my face. Yes, okay. Hey friends, welcome back to Beer&Beauty. It's Kasha. How should we start this video? I guess the libation of the day. Today's libation of the day is Coast Road Collection Cabernet Sauvignon. Looks like this. California Cabernet Sauvignon is a 2019. It says, just like cruising along the coast, your hand riding the waves of the window and the beachy tune playing through the static on the radio, Coast Road wines are laid back and full of California vibes. We'll see about that. Let's give it a taste. Cheers. Oh, it's really delicious. It's not too sulfatey. It's pretty, like, tastes like grape juice, but like not in a sweet way. Still very much a dry wine. I think you could definitely drink this during the day as well as into the evening. The price point was really good. I believe this was like a less than $10 for this bottle of wine. Yeah, and it's gonna be a nice drink to have today while I share with you my yearly palette declutter. In the past, I did 2 different videos for my face palette declutter and my eyeshadow palette declutter, but I think today I might try to just do one big palette declutter. And I'm gonna try to be pretty cutthroat because I don't know about you guys, but 2020 was a little bit of a sad year. Yes, I did a whole lot less makeup than I ever imagined I would. And that means that a lot of palettes just didn't get used. I have a pretty big palette collection, but I will say I was very cautious of my spending even early on. Most of my spending at the beginning of the year was about my apartment that I just moved into. This apartment in LA, and I had just done a declutter right before I moved here. So I wasn't buying palettes then, and then coronavirus happened and the lockdowns happened. And I was planning on having a budgeting project for the year of 2020, but that kind of dissolved away. I ended up going into basically a no-buy. I've only purchased one palette this year, and every other palette that's in my collection I either acquired as a gift or in a subscription box, like a boxy charm. So you're gonna see a lot of the palettes that have been featured in my previous palette declutters, but I'm gonna try to be really honest with myself and very cutthroat in this palette declutter. I don't think I'll be able to cut down this palette in half, this collection in half, but maybe like 40% I can try to declutter. Well, that's gonna be my goal. I'm gonna try to declutter around 40% of my collection. I may or may not be moving in 2021 again to another city. You know, I'm still dealing with the pros and cons. I love LA, and I'm like, one of the things that I'm so lucky to have experienced this year was to be able to move here, even though I try to do like a really pretty makeup look for this video, even though you're not gonna really see me that well anyway, because in my last video I kind of threw something together and it wasn't the most flattering ever. So today I try to look very pretty for you guys. So I hope you guys like what I'm wearing, because I try to pick some of my favorite products to really awaken my love of makeup, because it's been really sad the last couple months. I haven't done a makeup client, like a beauty makeup, since September. I did a couple special effects like Halloween makeups in October and early November, but really since early November it's been nothing. And as a result, I actually have no idea how this declutter is gonna go, because I don't know if I'm gonna want to replace a lot of things, because I you know, some of this stuff is getting to be a little bit older, so I should probably replace it. But at the same time, I don't know how much makeup I'm going to be doing next year either, because, you know, I think it will be a better year for makeup as a makeup artist, but it's still not going to be the same as 2019. I think it's going to be at least until 2022 before we're going to have, we can even hope to have a year of growth in terms of makeup appointments and makeup clients, you know. I think it's still going to be, at least for the first half of the year, a few small appointments, like single person appointments, and those aren't the big money makers. and those are the ones where I use a lot of product either. So I have no idea how this makeup declutter is gonna go, but there's definitely a number of palettes I know I have to declutter because they're getting pretty old. I have to be really honest with myself about what I'm actually going to use, what do I really love. I know there's a couple of palettes in my collection that I said in the last declutter that if I don't use it in the next declutter, I'm going to have to declutter it. So that's going to be something I have to consider. So I guess we will have to see how it all goes. Cheers to that. Keep on watching if you'd like to see my entire palette collection, both eyeshadows and face palettes. Okay, so I've decided that I am gonna go ahead and make it an entire palette collection video. No sense in dragging it out into 2 different videos. It's gonna be a long video, but yeah, I think that it'll be fun to see it in this format. This is new. The other 2 times I did palette declutter videos, I did it in 2 different installments, eyeshadows and face palettes. Today it's just gonna be a collective palette declutter. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see how it all goes. Hey friends, so here is my palette collection. I tried to make it into this little aesthetic collage just for you guys to see it all in its huge masses. Let me just, I guess it's zoomed out all the way. But I actually haven't counted how many palettes are here, but I think the way that we're gonna do this is we're gonna go by alphabetical order by the brand. I've done it that way the last 2 times I've done palette declutters before, and you guys seem to like that, so I think we're gonna do that again. And I guess before we do all that, I'm gonna group everything into little groups of brands and count all the palettes so we know how much we've got in the beginning here. So let's go ahead and get into that and do that. Okay, so it appears that I have 88 palettes here, which is less than I thought. I thought they're over 100. So it would be interesting to get it down to 50 palettes total. But so that means I would have to get rid of 38. We'll see how doable that all is. So now I'm gonna group everything into alphabetical order. And I guess I'm gonna turn off the camera for all that because that's gonna take a while. Okay, let's get started. So the first item or brand I have in my alphabetical order of palettes is Ebates. Looks like this. This is the Scarlet Dusk palette. As you can see, it's still inside its box. And this is already on my Poshmark. It's something I decided that I don't think I'll end up using a lot of in my collection, so that is on my Poshmark. That's the Ebates Scarlet Dusk palette. Next is Alamar Cosmetics. I have 2 of their palettes. I have this blush palette, which is absolutely gorgeous. And I accidentally just dropped this palette and it didn't shatter, so that's amazing. I use all 3 of these shades all the time. I am always excited to use this palette. I think it's beautiful. Same with this eyeshadow palette. This is the Reina del Caribe palette, volume 1. This is the Colorette Blush Trio Fair Light. I guess they have other skin tones, but I got the Fair Light one. I got both of these in a BoxyCharm, and it's stuff like this makes me thankful to have BoxyCharm because I get awesome stuff like this. These shimmers are amazing, these mattes are amazing. I just love this palette, and I took this to Cuba with me when I went during the last week of cruises that actually went out to Cuba. I think the week after I came back from Cuba is when they decided to deregularize the connections America had with Cuba, so no more trips to Cuba for a while, but maybe things will change in the new administration, which is coming soon. We shall see, but I do love these palettes and they make me think of Cuba, and I'm going to keep both of them because they're beautiful makeup products and they give me amazing looks and give me some nice memories too. So I love these. Next is Anastasia. So I have all these Anastasia palettes. I don't even know. I think I'll just go at these randomly. I don't know how I'm gonna go through all these palettes. I think Anastasia is the brand I have the most items from. Oh man. What am I gonna do? Well, I think the item I've had the longest is this very beat up modern Renaissance palette. It looks like this. As you can see, it's pretty well loved. It's got quite a bit of pan, some good dips in it. It has been used to pieces. And I think just because I've had this for quite a while, I should really consider replacing this one. But this is actually in my project pan, which I never got a chance to finish up, but maybe I should finish up sometime soon. But I think I will declutter this, but I love this palette and I use it all the time. If I were to move, I shouldn't really take this with me because it's like the consistency's changing at this point with this palette. So I'm gonna declutter this one. Another palette that I absolutely love. This is still going strong, even though it's got some good dips in it. It gets used quite a bit. This is the Soft Glam palette. This kind of lives in my kit, actually, in my makeup artist kit. It is an essential tool for makeup artistry, and I'm gonna keep that one. This one I haven't used a whole lot. This is the Riviera palette. But these shimmers are so unreal and it's such a fun color story. I bought it because I lived in the French Riviera for about a month. So I like the motif, I like the vibes, I like the metallic package. I just like a lot about this palette. I haven't used it a lot though. I really need to use it more. So I'm gonna hold on to this and I need to use it more. These two palettes, this is the Self-Made palette. At this point, I'm gonna keep it, but I'm only gonna use it as like a reference for this channel. Yeah, just for the sake of history. I do want to swatch some of these. Yeah, it's pretty powdery. When I first got this palette, this shimmery pink was the most amazing thing in the world. It's still pretty amazing, but it's getting to be less amazing all the time. Let me swatch this purple just for fun. Yeah, this purple used to be more amazing than it is anymore. This was a really fun palette for a long time, but I think if I were to move, I will maybe even throw this away just because it's pretty old at this point. Let's swatch Treasure. Yeah, it feels a lot drier than it used to be. But yeah, it is an older palette at this point. It is behaving differently. I'm only keeping it for, for collector's sake. Oh. I never took off the plastic off this little metal part, but makes it look shinier and newer. But same with this artist palette. I think this is a really fun palette. I've always really liked it, and I actually sometimes still use this aubergine color because I think it's pretty unique and it helps me develop a lot of looks. So once in a while I'll use just this color, but it is an older palette. So I don't really use it for anything other than that aubergine color, but it is, Anastasia Beverly Hills' the first ever colorful palette that she ever put out. Yeah, it's fun. I've enjoyed a lot of the colors, and I still use that aubergine color quite a bit. And I like to have it as a collector's piece, basically. This palette, the Anastasia Brow palette, or the Brow Book as it's colloquially known, this lives in my kit, so I'm gonna be holding on to it for my kit. This palette, the Anastasia Sugar Glow Kit palette, I'm going to play around with it for a little bit longer, but I think it's got a shattered shadow there. If anything, I might keep this marshmallow color. That color is pretty interesting. You can pop these out of their pans, but the rest of it I might just give away. Yeah, I don't find myself reaching for this as much as I used to, so I think declutter that. Wow. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna declutter it. Okay, so we got the Aurora and the Moonchild palette. These are both colorful highlighter palettes. I love the Moonchild palette. I use it all the time. And I mess around with the Aurora palette as well. It is also super fun. I did have this shadow shatter on me one time. Yeah, I pressed it in there back myself and it's been holding on strong. So these fulfill my colorful highlighter needs, and I don't need any other colorful highlighters. Well, I do have my Milk palette, but other than my Milk palette, this fulfills my colorful highlighter needs, and I'm gonna hold on to those. And lastly, we got the Subculture palette. This might be in the maybe pile. I like this palette, but I don't use it too often. I did actually recently pull it out just so I could give this electric color another try. The problem with the electric color is that it looks so beautiful, but it's pressed so hard. So it's hard to get it to show up or do the things that you want it to do. It should really be a softer shadow. Whereas some of these mattes are such soft shadows, you really want them to be not so soft. Like this Untamed color is so pigmented that it tends to like make things muddy. But I'm gonna hold on to this palette a little while longer and play around with it. I do like this palette. I know the subculture has had a bit of a bad rap, but I like it, so I'm gonna hold on to that. I'm surprised. I did actually declutter 2 Anastasia palettes. I'm surprised. Okay, we've got some Bad Habit palettes. Bad Habit, I think, has turned into the brand called Alter Ego, but they used to be known as Bad Habit, but they're essentially still the same idea. They kind of do like dupe palettes. This one I think I'm going to declutter. I just don't use it. I just don't pick it up very often. This is the Bad Habit Aura palette. It's supposed to be a dupe of the Anastasia Prism palette, and it looks so beautiful, but I just never pick it up. It's just not practical in my collection, even though it's so beautiful. I think if I were to move, I'm gonna have to part with this one. So that is gonna be in my declutter pile, even though I'm looking at it, I'm just like, oh, it looks so pretty. Why don't I use it more? Maybe I'll use it one or 2 more times and then I'll give it away to a friend, but I think it's time for me to part with this. This palette is super pretty. I can't let this go because it's so pretty. I think because I was strong and I gave away the Aura palette, I'll hold on to this one. This is this is the Bad Habit Aftercharge palette. It's supposed to be a dupe of one of the Gemstones Impressions palettes. This is just such a unique palette. It's just very glittery, very pretty, very shimmery. Let me go ahead and swatch some of these. Yeah, this has got like a blue to purple kind of like shifting nature, that shadow. This one's a little bit more pink. There, you know, I'm noticing that it's a lot drier since the last time I touched it, but it's still really pretty. That purple's pretty great. I'm gonna hold on to it for one more round, but I think next time we're gonna do a declutter, that one's gonna have to go. But for now, we're gonna hold on to that. This is the Bad Habit Afterglow palette, a dupe of the Huda Beauty Coral Obsessions palette. This might be in the maybe pile, just because I do really love these types of colors in the summer and spring. But I haven't touched this palette this year. I don't think. If anything, I might have used it one time this year. But other than that, I don't think I've really used it that much. I guess I'll have to look at it against some of the other palettes I might end up putting in the maybe pile. It's a fun little palette though. Like I said, I still love these colors, but you know, for the sake of cutting down on this collection and making time to really get to know other parts of my collection, I might have to part with this. So this has got a lot of orangey colors. I'll put this in the maybe pile for now, just so I can put it up against some other colors and see how they measure up. That will be my maybe pile for now. Next up is my In the Balm of Your Hands palette by The Balm. I take this traveling with me non-stop. I never use these eyeshadows, but I always use these face palettes and a little bit of this highlighter too. It's a great palette to travel with. I love, as you can see, like there's a pretty significant dip in this Bahama Mama bronzer, which I wear all the time when I'm traveling. This might be the last round for this palette, but it is well loved. It's very sturdy. It can take a beating when I take it traveling. So if I'm only taking a carry-on with me and this gets tossed around inside my bag, it can withstand that. Like I've never had any of these shades break on me. You know, I've never tried to use this Matte Russo color as a blush. Maybe if I mix it in with some of these colors, it could make a really lovely mauve toned blush. I should play around with that too. I do love this palette. It is a great affordable palette that is awesome to take traveling with me. So I'm gonna hold on to that. Next is Becca. Both of these palettes from Becca Cosmetics are ones that live in my kit. This one I use all the time. This is one of my favorite bronzers ever. This is the Malibu Soleil bronzer. This highlighter is so beautiful. This peach nectar, or beach nectar Yeah, it's called Beach Nectar Highlighter, and you can only get it in this palette. And I don't know, I think you can still get this palette at Nigel's, but I don't know if you can get it anywhere else. But this Chrissy Teigen palette is like an essential in my collection. It makes the looks so glowy, and it's just beautiful, and I absolutely love this palette. And I'm gonna be lost in the world when this like starts to go off, but right now it's still holding on strong. And actually, when I took classes at cinema makeup school this year, one of my teachers like said that this was like a pivotal product in her kit. She doesn't know how to do makeup, like glowy bridal makeup, without this palette. So I'm gonna hold on to this palette for sure. This Jaclyn Hill Becca palette, same thing. I have it for Champagne Pop. Champagne Pop is in here too, as well as Prosecco Pop. These are both beautiful highlighters. I don't use the blushes too often, and I keep saying I need to use these blushes more often, but I just never reach for them. I don't know what to say. I just never reach for them, but I'm gonna keep them at least for these highlighters, and they still serve their function quite well. So I'm gonna be holding on to both of these Becca palettes because they are essential in my kit. Here's another thing that just lives in my kit nonstop. This is the Cheek Parade palette from Benefit. These three colors are having some pretty decent dips into them. Now, I think out of all the blushes in my collection, this is the closest one. I think this Dandelion color is the closest one to hitting pan. I don't think I'm ever gonna hit pan on a blush because I only use the tiniest amount every time I dip into that. But I love using Dandelion on very fair-skinned clients. It's very flattering on very fair people. And it's absolutely beautiful. And if I want to add a little bit of glow, I might throw in a little bit of California or Rockateur, just a tiny, 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 tiny bit. Also, Hoola Light I use. This is my only really light bronzer that I have, so I use those on my very fair clients. And actually most of the time I will mix it with Hoola, and Hoola is a great bronzer because it can also, it's warm enough to be used as a bronzer, but it's got a little bit of a coolness to it. So you can also use it as a contour, and if you're in a rush, I might just use, if you're trying to finish up a look real quick, I might just use Hoola just so I don't have to think about it, whether or not I need to sculpt or bronze or neither or both. I don't know. I might just use Hoola just as a fail-safe. It still smells amazing. People talk about how Too Faced products smell great, but nobody talks about how Benefit products smell great too. I might have to get a new one of these next time around because I feel like I've had this a little bit over a year. It's still working well. I imagine around 6 months from now, I might have to revamp my entire kit. But until that time comes around, I'm gonna hold on to this for now. I'm only gonna be using it sparingly anyway, but this is a great palette. Very versatile, awesome to have in my kit. I do think this packaging is a little bulky though, but if I really wanted to, I could just pop these out and put it into a little palette. But for now, it's all good. I'll still hold on to that for now. Next up is ColourPop. I have less ColourPop palettes than I thought I did, which is surprising. But first of all, I think my favorite ColourPop palette is this I Think I Love You palette. This is, if I want to take a neutral palette me traveling, this is my favorite neutral palette. And then I often will take these two with me together because they're both so small and easy to pack when I travel, and you can get some really flattering, beautiful looks with it. This might be my favorite ColourPop palette. Or actually, this one's really beautiful too. Like this Dream Street palette, it's the Kathleen Lights and ColourPop collaboration. It's so well thought out. It's both neutral and it's got some fun pops of colors, and it's got some really unique dynamic shimmers. So you can get glam looks with it, you can get colorful looks with it, you can get neutral looks with it. It's just beautiful, and the packaging is really beautiful too. It's got the, both of these have got this like metallic thing going on. But I do love both of these, gonna keep both of those. This is a beautiful palette. This is the ColourPop All I See Is Magic palette. I love it, but I haven't used it this year. It's getting to be an older palette, and I think some of my classmates from cinema makeup school might have fun playing around with something like this, so I might give this away to one of my old classmates. I haven't gotten a chance to use this palette a whole lot. This is the Zodiac palette from Kathleen Lights. I don't know. The way I do makeup is sometimes I'll decide what palette I want to use, and I usually don't use it on its own just because not every palette has the right neutrals that I want to go with it. But you know, this I'm actually going to put in the maybe pile because I have to swatch it against some other colors in my collection. I just don't know if this is a palette I'm going to reach for a lot. I'm going to put that in the maybe pile for now. I think this one I'm also going to put in the maybe pile as well. This is the ColourPop Perception palette. It's a Shayla and ColourPop collaboration. Another one I haven't used a lot of, but I think this is a really well thought out color story. A variety of stuff going on here. Lots of shimmers, lots of mattes, pretty colorful, but some neutrals in there as well. I'm gonna have to just see if I end up using it. I'm gonna put this in a maybe pile for now, but I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more. This is the ColourPop Inudendo palette. I got this because Jay Kissa said this is like her favorite highlighter palette. I just haven't been reaching for it a whole lot. I did declutter that glow kit though, so maybe I can hold on to this because I decluttered that glow kit. I think if I were doing more makeup this year, I probably would have been using this palette a lot more. Because I haven't been doing as much makeup, I haven't been using it. I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile. Next we have Colored Rain. I think I'm gonna keep all three of these. Some of these shimmers in this Cheers to Beauty palette are just out of this world. I never touched the mattes though, but this is probably the best silver in my collection, this Diamond Jubilee color in this palette. Honestly, that might be the only color I use. Strange. Ooh, okay. So now I have to think about this. This is a really big palette, but the colors, the shimmers are absolutely beautiful. I think I'm gonna keep it, but I have to be really practical about it next time around, just because I haven't used it enough. What can I say? This I'm definitely gonna keep. This is the Colored Rain Vivid Pigments shadow. These are so pigmented, these colors, and this is probably the best rainbow palette in my collection. This is awesome. Well, second best rainbow palette. I have another really great one, but this is awesome. A really beautiful rainbow palette. So I'm gonna keep this one. It's still like performing amazingly. It's an amazing palette, one of my favorites. And this is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. A lot of people keep saying that this is amazing, but I keep not using it. I need to just use it more. But it's important that we are having these conversations because now that I'm decluttering Modern Renaissance, maybe I'll start using this a lot more. And maybe part of the reason I just don't reach for these colors as much as I should is because this is it's such a big palette. But I really need to use this more because I've heard nothing but amazing things about this palette, and I can't even speak to what it's like because I haven't used it in so long. I barely use it. Ugh, this is such a problem. I think I'm gonna hold on to it because I need to get a better use out of it. This is a brand new palette. This is from Ciate. Next brand is Ciate. And this is a brand new palette in my collection. The video just cut off and I don't know where I was. I was basically saying that I've got these colors in other parts of my collection, and I've only used this palette once and I wasn't that blown away, and I just have more amazing shadows in other parts of my collection. And I think because it's so new, I think my friends from Cinema Makeup School might get really amazing use out of this. So I might like give this away to one of my makeup friends. I think I'm gonna declutter this one. I feel good about decluttering that. It still makes it a good gift. I only used it one time. To give it to a friend would be really nice. Okay, so I have two D brands. And I guess the first D brand is this Dominique Cosmetics. I do love this palette. This is another palette I got in a BoxyCharm last year. The Celestial Thunder palette. I love this palette. The mattes are very pigmented. The shimmers are lovely too, very unique shimmers. And I had a lot of fun with it, but I haven't touched it since I got it. It hasn't been exposed to the air very much. I think I'm gonna give this away to a friend. I'm probably not gonna miss it much. As much as I really love this palette, I think it's a great palette, great shimmers, great mattes. I just don't pick it up very often and I need to declutter more. And I think it would make a great gift, seeing as I've only used it like maybe once or twice. So I think that'd be a great gift to give away to a friend, one of my cinema makeup school friends. So I'm gonna pass that on. Next up is Dose of Colors. This is the only Dose of Colors palette I have. This is the Desi X Katie Friendcation palette. I put this up on a shelf in my kitchen this year as like, because it was one of the prettier palettes I had in my collection. And because it was up on that shelf, I never used it much, but I should use it more because from the little that I've used it, it's been a fun and lovely palette and I wanted this so bad. And then I bought it and I used it a lot when I first got it, and I haven't used it at all this year just because I haven't had a ton of time to play with makeup. I think I'm gonna keep it because it's got lovely shimmers, amazing mattes. I even use this in a kit once in a while. I think there is a lot of use and love left in this palette. I think I'm gonna hold on to that for now. Whoops, I totally missed this F palette. This was supposed to be in the F. I might rearrange it in post. Yeah, I might rearrange this in post to make this in alphabetical order. But this is the Face Candy Atlantis palette. This is a blue palette. It's supposed to be, you know, how a while ago for April Fool's Day, Tarte made like this colorful palette as a joke, but then this brand Face Candy actually made it into a real palette. I think it's great. I haven't picked it up a ton this year. I think I did pick it up a couple times just because it's my go-to blue and purple palette. So, you know, maybe in 2021 I should do a colorful looks project. I started to do one not in 2020, but in 2019 I did one at the beginning of the year that I never finished. Maybe I should finish it and get a little bit more use out of these colorful shadows, but I am gonna keep this one because this actually is something that brings me joy. I haven't used it in a while, but I should really get a little bit more use out of it. I like it a lot. Okay, so next up we have Hourglass. I have this ambient lighting palette from Hourglass. I got Pan on this shade. This palette had a little bit of an accident this year. Most of this shadow like broke away, or this highlight broke away, and part of this highlight broke away. But there's still enough left in here for me to make do with until it's time for me to get a new palette, which I think next year I'll get a new one of these palettes. I love this palette so much that I think I will replace it, but it has gotten some really good use and I love it, and I can't even do makeup without it. It just adds like a beautiful glow to like any look, especially bridal looks. I love this palette. Same with this ambient lighting edit palette. This was a holiday palette a while back. I got Pan on this shade, and then these blush colors are amazing. I love this color. I think this one's called Mood Exposure, and I love this bronzer as well. This is the only like luminous bronzer that I really love, and I use this whole palette all the time, so I love this palette so much. It's one of my favorite palettes in my collection. It's so glowy and beautiful and versatile, and it was expensive, so good thing I love it so much. You can't buy this palette anymore. If I were to want to, I would definitely buy this blush again, the Mood Exposure blush, and maybe even the bronzer. And for sure, I'm gonna repurchase this. It's like a setting powder, the ambient lighting powders. I really love the ambient lighting powders. They're such a game changer in my kit, so I really love this, and I think I would like to buy. I'm gonna keep it, and I'm gonna like to buy it again one day too. Okay, so we got the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. We got 3 Huda Beauty palettes right here. The Desert Dusk. I haven't touched this a whole lot this year, but I still want to keep it. I still want it. I still love it. I don't know. I might put it in the maybe pile. I haven't touched this all year long. I think I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep this. I'm also gonna keep the nude. This actually I do use in my kit once in a while. The shimmer shades are so unique. The The mattes are okay, but they're so unique and they're so blendable and such a lovely nude color story, but also leaning a little bit purpley pink. I really love this palette. This is absolutely lovely. Honestly, these two are a little bit similar. This one's a little bit darker, this one's a little bit more nude, but they've got, you know, Huda vibes all over them, both of them. But the shimmers in this one are incredible. Still absolutely gorgeous. You know what? Let me go swatch this Daydream color for you. Delicious. You know, starting to be a little bit like you gotta dig into it a little bit more, but still pretty amazing. You know, they're getting to be older, so you're definitely gonna need like a sticky base at this point to use this palette, but still works great. Still love it. Then we got the Huda Beauty Electric Obsessions palette. The only Obsessions palette that I have from Huda Beauty. I love it for this coral color and this red color. These shimmers are great too. These mattes are just okay, but I'm gonna keep this palette because it's so little and it doesn't take up any space, and I still use it once in a while. So I love all those, so I'm gonna keep that. Next up is my Juvia's Place palettes. So I might have more Juvia's Place palettes than Anastasia palettes, but that's because I love them so much. Juvia's Place is such an amazing brand, and like so many of her palettes are amazing. I can't declutter this. This is one of my favorite palettes. It's so fun and colorful. I love it. This pinky shade is very unique in my collection. The shimmers are very loud and fun. Everything's just pigmented and great, and I haven't actually, yeah, it's still performing amazingly. So the Zulu palette I will keep. This is one of my favorite palettes of 2020, I think. During quarantine, I dyed the bottoms of my hairs lime green, so I was using this palette a lot. This is the Tribe by Juvia's Place. And at first glance, this doesn't seem like a monochromatic green palette, but all these shades like shift green or complement green in such amazing ways. And so many of these colors are just so unique. Like this one, it's got like this lovely like green shift. Let's touch this orange. Well, this orange, yeah. The orange has a little bit of a green shift as well, and even the lime. And you know what? Now that I'm swatching this lime green, I feel a little bit better about decluttering this Aura palette, just because it's got like a neon yellow lime kind of color, and this one's actually better than that one. So I feel better about decluttering Aura since I'm gonna keep this one. This is a really interesting, unique palette and one of my favorites of 2020. This is the Magic Mini by Juvia's. I only used this a few times this year, and I think I'm gonna hold on to it, but I'm gonna put it in the maybe pile for now because I barely touched it this year. I should really use it more. I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile for now. This is the Warrior by Juvia's Place, and here's the tragedy of this. I've had this for like over a year, and as you can see, it's still in its box, it's still in its packaging, and I've never used it. It's so beautiful looking, but I should really, since I haven't used it, since I haven't gotten a chance to pick it up at all this year, and I have lovely, beautiful neutral shadows other places in my collection, I should probably try to give this a new life on Poshmark. So I'm gonna put this untouched palette that's still got the bubble wrap on it and everything. I think I'm gonna put that on my Poshmark because I said in my last declutter that if this doesn't get used by the next time I do a declutter, then I need to declutter this. And I'll just buy it again when I'm more ready to buy it. So this is gonna be a brand new item that I'm gonna put on my Poshmark. This is another item, I actually still have the box kicking around for this, but this has never been used. This is the Afrique palette by Juvia's. Looks so fun and beautiful. These colors look so fun. The packaging is amazing. This looks like such a fun palette, but I just picked it up. So this is another one that's on my Poshmark page. Untouched, unused, would make a great gift. Yeah, that's on my Poshmark. This is one of my favorite palettes of all time. This is the Masquerade Mini by Juvia's Place. I use this all the time. It's so fun because it's got shimmers, it's got mattes, It's mostly shimmers, but it's got a few mattes. And it's got like the neutral section down here and the colorful section up here. Really fun and unique colors that play well together in this palette. I'm definitely gonna keep this palette. This is one of my favorites in my collection. Last is the Sahara palette. I think I've only used this like one time. And it's a shame because it is really pretty. All of these palettes are so pretty. But I think that's gonna be a really, because it's so gently used, I think this would make a really lovely gift. So I think I'm gonna declutter that one because I haven't picked it up. And yeah, I think a lot of these colors overlap with other colors in my collection. And yeah, I think it would be really nice. A really nice gift. So I'm gonna declutter that. Oh, that was hard. This is getting hard. It's getting harder all the time. So these are my KVD palettes, or Kat Von D, formerly known as Kat Von D, now known as KVD. This one I don't think I can declutter. This is the Saint and Sinner palette. This was a holiday palette for a while ago. It's so unique that I do pick it up from time to time for its unique shades. Like, sometimes I think of like, what if I used that gray shadow with those sparkles in it, the Ashes shadow, or this really yellowy gold over here, or this lavendery gunmetal color over here, or some of these transformer colors. Like, I do pick this up from time to time. I think I might want to depot it just so I use the shadows as is more often and give away some of the singles that I don't use as often. But really pretty palette. Some of these shadows are still pretty unique, and I do pick them up from time to time. So I think I'm gonna hold on to that. This I hold on to. This is the Divine palette, you know, inspired by the drag queen Divine. This I actually use for drag looks in particular, and I do like the packaging. The packaging is pretty, like, it gives a bit of a pop, which is fun. I do like this palette. I think I'm gonna hold on to it for now. I might try to depot it. Last time I did a declutter, it took everything in my willpower to declutter the Metal Matte palette, but I did keep the mini palette, but I do pick it up from time to time just for the Thunderstruck color, but I haven't used the rest of the palette very much. I might put that in the maybe pile for now. And this is the Shade and Light palette. It's a contour palette. I use it for these two colors a lot, and sometimes these two. I keep it around just in case. I do actually, I recently bought this Kevin Aquan palette, and this is my go-to contour palette. I don't love these highlighters. I never use those. I do mess around with this blush quite a bit, but I do use the contour colors all the time. I love this. It's a great contouring palette, and this is the one I use most of the time. But once in a while, if this doesn't quite do the trick, I'll use this. And then there's no palettes out there in the world that have these like under eye, like lightning powders, other than, I'll go ahead and show you. I sometimes will use the Visor palette when I can't find this one, or I just don't have this one around. But as you can see, these are a little bit more skin toned over here, and this one's a little bit, it's just a different, like sometimes you just need something with a little bit more yellow. But then I also have like a banana powder, but the banana powder is too yellow. Like, this is just unique, and I keep it around because there's just not another palette that's quite like this one. So might have to find something to replace it, because I don't buy from KVD. I haven't bought from KVD since like 2008, maybe even longer, maybe 2017. I can't even remember. I think early 2018 is when I bought this. And as you can see, it's older. Everything's like worn away. I'm very conflicted about it, but I do use it from time to time. When I can't use this, I use that. But so I'm gonna keep all those. My keep pile is starting to get a little too crazy. Okay, so we got Elle. So we got Lorac and we have Linda Hallberg. We'll start with Linda Hallberg. This is my Infinity Deep palette from Linda Hallberg. Beautiful palette. It's a sculpting palette for darker skin tones. I do love this red. The red is the whole reason I bought it. I think I might declutter it next time, but this time I'm still gonna keep it. Still fun to have around, and it's so thin. Such an awesomely thin and easy to pack palette inside of a kit. I haven't done much makeup at all this year, but I've done even less makeup on deeper skin tones, but I think there's still some love that could happen with this palette. And I shipped it all the way from Sweden, so I should really play around with it a little bit more. I do absolutely love, I will never stop loving this Enchanted Secrets palette. I've used it enough now that the embossing is starting to wear away, which is sad because the embossing is so beautiful. But the fact that it's getting used is important, so I'm gonna keep it. Let me just swatch it. Just, ooh, beautiful. But you know what? I just realized. Very similar to the swatches from earlier. And this green is actually, you know, my Pat McGrath palette has a green that's kind of like this. That is better. This is the color Zephyr. You know what? This might be getting bumped down to the... This would be really pretty as an eye look. This might be bumped down to the maybe pile, actually. Just, it's something I coveted and wanted so bad for a while. But just for the sake of downsizing, maybe I won't miss it so much if I were to give it away. And it might be really lovely to give to a friend. I don't know. I'll put that in the maybe pile for now. These palettes I absolutely love. These are the Lorac 1 and the Lorac Pro 2. As you can see, they... Ooh. Oh no! See, I planned on doing laundry after this. This is beat up. The black shadow is just crumbling everywhere. I still have half this video to do and I've got black eyeshadow all over my white blanket. Bummer, man, but that's okay. But anyway, this is beat up, but it's a palette I use all the time, especially when I'm doing, like, when I'm doing clients. Lorac Pro 2, I think I'm gonna throw both of these away. They're beat up, they're crazy, but I do love them, and I use them all the time in my kit, but they need to be replaced. They're a little bit overly loved, and they need to be replaced. That's all there is to it. Okay, so we're a little bit over halfway through the alphabet. We got through all the brands that I have the most from, so, you know, the rest is going to be a little bit more sparse. Next is Melt Cosmetics, the Gemini palette. I love this palette, and honestly, I haven't used it a whole ton this year. I want to use it a lot more. Amazing mattes, amazing shimmers. Only a few, actually, there's only 2 shimmers in here, but they're great shimmers, so I'm going to hold on to this. The mirror cracked. Oh no. 7 years bad luck. Is coronavirus happening because I broke a mirror? Is my bad luck everybody's bad luck? I hope not. Anyway, yeah, beautiful palette. Absolutely awesome palette. I love this. It's nice to have these mossy greens. I do love a mossy green in like the winter time and in the fall. So I love this palette so much. I'm gonna hold on to that. This is the other colorful highlighter palette that I have. I talked about colorful highlighters when I talked about the Anastasia palettes I had, and this is the other one that I have. This is the Milk Makeup colorful, or the holographic quad. Yeah, really fun, beautiful palette. I did wash my hands just now just so I could swatch a little bit more for you guys, but yeah, some really lovely holographic colors here. And they really light up too when you put them on too. That's what they look, and they are duochrome colors as well. So this is a lot of fun, this palette. I'm gonna hold on to that a little while longer. Next is Morphe. So we got the Jaclyn Hill palette. This I keep at the bottom of my kit just in case. I haven't used it a whole lot this year because I haven't had a lot of just in case situations. I'm trying to think, did I do any gigs this year where I did more than one person's makeup? Not beauty. I haven't done like a multiple person wedding makeups, but I did a couple like multiple people Halloween makeups. No, this is really sad to go through. It's been kind of sad to do this declutter because I'm thinking of practically about like, how did this year go and how is next year liable to go? Am I gonna use this? I think I will, just because I don't have like a big colorful like a neutrals palette like this. It might be helpful when I do skulls, and I think I did actually use this when I did one of my skull appointments along with another neutrals palette that I have. But I think I'm gonna hold on to this one more time. One more time. This is the Morphe 9B blush palette. I think I'm gonna hold on to it. It's probably not that practical that I'm holding on to it. I used it a little bit in cinema makeup school when I took classes there this time around, but I think I'm gonna hold on to it. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna hold on to it. But next time I do a declutter, I'm not gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna get rid of it. And I actually did enjoy this quite a bit this year. This is the Boss Mood Babe, Boss Mood Babe palette from Morphe. This is the only like big palette that is colorful that I have from them left. And when I had my lime green hair, I did play around with it quite a bit and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Could have been a better palette, but perfectly satisfactory. Maybe I'll, you know, this is inspiring me. Oh, that is a beautiful purple shadow, actually. You know, I got short hair. Maybe I've been thinking, you guys, I've been thinking about getting a mohawk, and what if I dyed it like purple or red or something, and then I did crazy avant-garde makeup looks, and then I'll use this. But you know, it's never a good idea when you're doing declutters to think about your future self. But I guess it's better to hold on to stuff that you have and think about your future self, rather than what one should never do is buy things for your future self. It's one thing to think about who your future self might be and hold on to things that you already have, but if you're wasting money on a future self that might never come to fruition, then that's something else. But I did enjoy this palette. I did use this palette quite a bit this year and enjoy it. And I think I'm gonna hold on to it at least one more year. Okay. I think next up is Natasha Denona. I have 4 Natasha Denona palettes. 3 were from the last time I did a declutter. And this one is new. I got this one in a BoxyCharm. I love all of these to pieces. This one I'm actually wearing on my eyes today. Along with another palette that you haven't seen yet, but I'll show you it in a moment. These, you know, the few times I had clients this year, I used this blue-green palette, purple-blue palette. Incredible shimmers, so incredible, still incredible. This might be my favorite holiday palette of all time, maybe even my favorite palette of all time. Stunningly beautiful looks every time I touch it. And this one, you know, this palette, this is the gold palette, obviously, it says gold palette. And this is the Peak palette, which I got in a BoxyCharm, and I've been using it non-stop since I got it. This shimmer is not the best, but you know, there's similar shimmers in here and even in here to this palette. So, but these mattes are amazing too. And when they describe this palette, they're just like, oh, this is one of Natasha's favorite palettes to just kind of mix and match with her other palettes. And that is how I use it. And it's so small, really creamy, buttery, blendable shadows. I really like all 3 of those palettes. Like, it'd be really interesting to do a video if I could only keep 10 palettes, which palettes would I keep? Oh, that would be really hard. My life would be very hard. But I would have to keep all these because these are all amazing. Damn, my declutter pile isn't doing so good, but I'm gonna keep all those. This is the only NYX palette I have. This is the NYX Ultimate Shadow palette. This is their colorful one. I haven't touched this one a whole lot this year, but this is a great palette to have if you like to do colorful looks, just because they're a little bit less pigmented than some of my other colorful eyeshadow palettes. So this is a lot of fun for, like, this is really useful to use when you're trying to blend out some of those more pigmented shadows. So that's why I keep it around for. So I'm gonna keep this palette. Then for O, I only have one Ofra palette. This is the Ofra Pro palette. I keep it around for these highlighters primarily. And I just never use these shadows. This is really interesting. I think I'm gonna hold on to it for one more year, but the next time I do a declutter, I will. If anything, I might not declutter the whole palette. I do actually use the banana powder quite a bit because it's my one true banana powder that I have anywhere in my collection. But these shimmers look like they would probably perform well, but it's just that they're just kind of boring colors, so I never care to pick this up. I feel like all of these shadows are would be really practical to use. Like they probably perform well in their respective functions. I just never use them for their respective functions. This Blissful and this Rodeo Drive highlighter are the best. And I kind of need to keep them inside this palette because I've heard that they shatter quite easily, but they are beautiful highlighters, and that is the main reason I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep it for now. Here are most of my P palettes. Nope, this is the rest of my P palettes. Let's start with my main P palettes. So these are my 2 Pat McGrath palettes. I'm wearing one of them in my eyes today. And I'm wearing this on my eyes today. This is brand new. This is my newest eyeshadow palette. Look how pretty she is. I bought this because it just looks so beautiful. I'm so attracted to the gem tones. And I've only used it twice, but it's, oh, it's so pretty. I can't really like review it yet because I've only used it a couple times. But so far so good. It's so beautiful. And this is my favorite palette of all time. This is the Bronze Seduction palette, the Mothership 5 palette. This is my favorite red of all time. Just so you know how amazing, mind-blowing this shadow is. And it's still so soft. When I first bought this palette, I couldn't stop putting this shadow on my eyes. And these special shades, wow, are they so special. Like there's nothing more glittery and beautiful than that. And this, let me go ahead and just swatch everything as the pink. It's just a beautiful palette. And it's already a year old at this point, but it's still performing amazingly. The mattes are really good too. This is my favorite palette. I'm definitely not decluttering that. I'm gonna keep both of those Pat McGrath palettes. Pat McGrath, both of those are well, I haven't gotten to know the big palette yet. What's this called? The Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity palette. That's what this is called. I don't know this yet, but the packaging is amazing. The shadows are amazing. I need to get to know the hell out of this palette because Pat McGrath is just amazing. Her stuff is like everything she does is amazing. So I'm gonna keep those and I'm gonna get to know them well. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get into the P's. I think the next palette in the P's is my Persona Identity palette. This is one of my favorite palettes as well. This kind of lives in my kit. It's a little bit cool toned, but it is amazing. The shimmers are so shimmery and the mattes are so great too. Like this is, people don't talk about how amazing this palette is, the Persona Identity palette. And I really kind of want another palette that I'm coveting is the other Persona palette, the colorful one that came out last year. I want that palette too, but I use this palette all the time. This is really awesome for bridal. And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I should really use these shimmers a lot more. Let's go ahead and swatch. I think I use this Seductive color the most because it does translate so glam on the eyes. It is a lovely shadow. Let's go ahead and swatch. Maybe this Goddess shadow. Oh, I think that would be really lovely on the under eye. It is, yeah, it's got the right amount of luster and butteriness, but it's still, yeah, I don't know, it's a lovely palette. I'm definitely gonna keep this one. It's like a must in my kit. I got swatches on all my fingers. I gotta wash my hands. I'll be right back. Okay, let's get through the P's before I put dinner on the stove, at least. So we got the Bright Lights palette from Pinky Rose. I love this palette. It just makes me happy just looking at it. It's so bright and beautiful. And I do use this all the time whenever I go in for a colorful look. And you know, now that I think about it, I might declutter that Huda palette because I have this. Yeah, a lot. It's got a lot of the same stuff going on. Because I need to declutter more shadows. Yeah, I think I can declutter this one if I'm gonna keep this one. So I'm gonna declutter this one. Wow, that's hard for me. But this is a beautiful palette and this makes me happy. I used this one when I had my green hair, this shade, this lime green shade. Like, I just love this palette. It's so beautiful and makes me happy. This I tried to give a little bit more love to this year. This is the Exotic Peacock palette. This is the Bright Lights palette, by the way. This is the Exotic Peacock palette from Pinky Rose. I tried to give it a little bit more love. I kind of bought this in a hesitant kind of way. It's just that there was some sort of sale going on that if you bought multiple palettes from Pinky Rose that you would get a discount. But I just never use this, so I think I have to declutter this just because I really don't use this. I think I've only used it a couple times, and I think one of my friends would really love this, so I'm gonna declutter it and give it to a friend. I have 2 of these Pure palettes. No, I gotta talk about the Pretty Vulgar palette yet. I love this Nightingale palette from Pretty Vulgar, but I just never use it. It's just such a unique, like, cool toned palette, and you get some really sultry, beautiful, cool tones kind of looks out of it. I've only used it like a couple of times, and I feel like it would be a really lovely gift to give to somebody, so I'm gonna declutter that. Next up, I got one of these Pure palettes in a BoxyCharm, but it came broken, and then I got connected with support with BoxyCharm and then sent me a second one. So one of these is on, like, the one that isn't broken. I think I'm gonna, the broken one I'm gonna give to a friend because I don't actually particularly like this palette. And it's just so, it doesn't really offer anything to me in my collection. I don't like pressed shadows. And the other one is on my Poshmark already, so that is the deal with that. All right, let's go through S just really quick. So this is my one and only S brand. This is my Sugar Pill Pro palette. It is my favorite colorful eyeshadow palette. It is so well loved. As you can see, it usually lives in my special effects kit. And then sometimes it gets brought over to my beauty kit, but because it lives in my special effects kit, that's why it kind of gets beat up. On the inside, it's not so bad though. Yeah, I just love this thing. I also have a single of the Love Plus, which is the best red, like true red shadow on the market. And then like these colors are just beautiful too. So I'm definitely gonna keep this palette. It is one of my favorites in my entire collection. Okay, so next up is the letter T. I've got 2 T brands. So I've got Tarte first. First is this Tarte Clay Play palette. This pretty much lives in my kit, and it's going to continue to live in my kit. I love it as something I can use in my clients. It's very versatile. I like having this like range of cool matte shadows, and these can be sculpting colors as well, but they're a little bit on the warm. This one's a little bit on the warm side, but it's actually not so bad. I just thought of something. This I've actually been taking to use instead of this more often. There still isn't a shade quite like this. I think I'm gonna depot this palette and just keep this color so I can declutter this. And then I'm gonna keep this. This I haven't used a whole ton. This looks pretty new actually. And for the sake of just downsizing, as much as I do like this palette, I think it's really pretty. Thinking hard, I think I'm gonna declutter this. Yeah, I almost put this in the maybe pile for a second, but I had this for a little bit over a year now. I haven't used it a whole ton. I think a friend would really love this, so I'm gonna declutter that. This is the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes palette. I used to have a bunch of the Too Faced chocolate bar palettes and the peach palette, but this is all I have left. It still smells like peaches. I haven't used it all year long though, but you know what? I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna keep this, and I'm gonna declutter the Afterglow palette because this has got a couple peachy colors that this has. I'm gonna declutter this. Gonna keep this. This has a couple unique colorally shades that this had, this kind of had. So I can keep this too. I'm gonna keep both of these, and I'm gonna declutter that Afterglow palette. Yes, we're almost down to the wire. Next we have Urban Decay. I've got 3 Urban Decay palettes. I love this Moondust palette. I still occasionally will reach for this just to add a little bit of glitter to a look, so I will keep that. I love this. I love this Christine Leanne palette. Every single one of these colors is amazing. I haven't used the orange a ton, and I have orange in other parts of my collection, but as far as the shimmers go, these Transformer shades are really unique, This is a great palette. I love this palette. I'm gonna keep this. Yeah, and every one of these colors is pigmented. This black is really amazing. This is just a great palette. I love this. And we have the Urban Decay Electric palette, which at this point is a collector's item. I think I'm still gonna keep it though. Yeah. For its collector's value-ness, I'm gonna keep it. Yeah. You can't stop me. Almost done. Okay, now we got Violet Voss. This is a palette I never use. This is a Violet Voss Like a Boss palette. This is on my Poshmark already, so that is decluttered. This is also on my Poshmark. This is the Violet Voss Essentials palette, another thing I got in a BoxyCharm this year. A lovely color scheme, really pretty palette. I have so many palettes and many that are like this, so as much as I think I would have loved it if I didn't have anything like this, I do have a lot that is like this, so I'm gonna go ahead and declutter that as well. That has never been touched. That's on my Poshmark as well. And lastly, this is the Violet Voss Holy Grail palette, and this is one of the few warm toned like lots of like neutrals palette, and it's got a few like really versatile mattes in it. I think I'm gonna hold on to this. Actually, I think I'm gonna put this in the maybe palette, because now that I'm thinking about it, that this clay play palette serves the purpose of this quite a bit. It's like this is my go-to like mattes palette, along with of course this and the Jaclyn Hill palette. I shouldn't keep both this and the Jaclyn Hill. I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile for now, actually. Oh wow. But I did use that special effects kit quite a bit this year. Okay, so now we're down to Visart. I have 3 Visart palettes. These two are actually the same. This is the Visart Neutrals palette, so is this. This I bought to replace this because I thought I would go through this year, but I ended up not doing as much makeup as I thought I would this year. So I put this unused, untouched palette on my Poshmark. So this is gonna get decluttered. I'm gonna hold on to this for a little while longer. I think that I'm gonna declutter this palette just because I haven't used it at all this year. And I have my Gemini palette, so I get my mossiness from that. I don't ever touch these colors. I think I can part with this palette, even though it's so expensive, this palette. Stephanie, that influencer, Stephanie, I forget what her like middle name is, but she sung the praises of this palette. I use this in my kit nonstop. I can't even do makeup without this palette. I use this palette all the time. But this one, not so much. And I think I didn't declutter it last time because it was so expensive, but I haven't used it this year, so I think it's time to declutter it. That is so hard for me, but I'm gonna do it. And I'm surprised with myself. Okay, so we have one W palette. This is the, Wander Beauty Trip for Two Blush and Bronzer Duo. This is something I never even opened. I got this in a BoxyCharm, so that is also on my Poshmark, so that is being decluttered. Lastly, this is the Zoeva Premiere palette. Looks like this. I was so excited for this when I first got it, and I only used it once, and then I never used it again. I got this in a BoxyCharm, and I remember when I was reviewing that BoxyCharm, I was thinking about how, because it was at the very beginning of the year, it was before COVID-19 happened, and I was talking about how like I had just moved to Hollywood and I really want to decorate my new apartment in a 1920s style because it's a 1920s building and it's a new era of the 20s. It's the roaring 20s. Everything's gonna be so great. Ooh, I do think this peachy color is really pretty though. And I did enjoy using it when I used it, but I only had used it one time and I think it would make a lovely gift. So I will declutter that. I'm gonna give it away as a gift to a friend. So that is it. So let's go through the maybe pile again. Yeah, let's go through the maybe pile again. Oh, so here's something that I totally missed in the whole deal. I just got this in a BoxyCharm and I just reviewed it, and I liked it at first. I thought it was a beautiful color story. It just doesn't stack up to the rest of my collection, so I've decided that it would make a lovely gift for somebody because the packaging is so beautiful, but I'm gonna declutter that as well. So That's gonna go into the clutter pile, and I'm gonna have to like make a note and post about the true number of palettes that is here. But now let's go through the maybe pile. So here's the maybe pile. Oh no, that's not right. I guess the maybe pile got a lot smaller. I'm gonna keep the Violet Voss one more time. And next time I declutter, I'm gonna ColourPop and Nudendo palette. I'm gonna hold on to for now. The Shayla Perception palette I will declutter. Yeah, I have somebody I think would like this palette that I want to give them the palette. Metal Matte Mini palette. Want to keep it just for Thunderstruck. But I do like Feather, and I do like Douce. I think I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep this palette too, and I might declutter it next time. This is hard for me, and I'm weak. There's been a lot of loss this year, what can I say? I think I'm going to hold on to it for now. Well, okay, let's go back. What would I rather keep? I do pick this up a lot more, and this I'll declutter. I can't believe it because I never really got a chance to use this. I'm just gonna keep both. Whatever, I don't even care. Okay, let's do the final tallies of everything. Okay, so I counted the keep pile and we're at 61, and the declutter pile is at 28. And I decided that I wanted to declutter one more palette out of the keep pile just to make it an even number, 60. So I decided I'm going to declutter this Linda Hallberg Enchanted Secrets palette. It's so pretty, but I do have colors in my collection that are like this. Yeah, that are pretty similar to what you can find in here, even though this is so pretty. I think one of my friends would really like it. So I'm going to pass that on. And I'm going to try to get as much use as I can out of this big old pile of 60 something palettes. No, exactly 60 palettes that I'm keeping. And I'm decluttering now 29 palettes, almost 30. But you know, I didn't have an even number, that's okay. I'm keeping an even number, and this feels really good. I feel like I have lots of really awesome stuff I can still play with here, and it's gonna get a little bit more love from me without the clutter, you know? It's easier to experience more appreciation for your belongings when there's less clutter. And that is why we do declutters. It's about joy, right? So that is it. Thanks for watching, guys. So that is it, friends. That was my palette declutter. Full disclaimer, I am shooting this outro before I even shoot the palette declutter, so I don't know how it went, so we shall see. I might actually reshoot this outro if I discover anything that I really want to share my final thoughts on, but as it goes, I have no idea how this all turned out, but I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope it ended up being pretty cutthroat. I hope I decluttered a sensible amount of items. I hope I made the correct choices, but anything that was unswatched, unused, that I decided to declutter will be on my Poshmark, so if you would like to check that out, the link will be down below. Other than that, many of the things that I declutter, if they were gently used, I might give away to friends and family, and if they were, you know, it's just time for them to go into the trash, and they will in fact go into the trash. But yeah. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I love watching declutter videos myself, so if you are somebody that makes declutter videos, I would love to check them out. I have other ones as well, other declutter videos. Last year I did a whole declutter series. I don't think I'm going to do one this year, but I do enjoy making and watching declutter videos, so subscribe to this channel if you enjoy watching declutter videos. I also do a lot of empties videos and favorites videos, so if that sounds good to you, definitely subscribe so you can catch the next one. But yeah, that is everything I think I wanted to say. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I really enjoyed hanging out with you. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me, and until next time, cheers. Bye!